Hello everyone. Okay, so this is the second video on how to write an essay for the question, what contributes to enduring appeal of crime fiction? That's not exactly the essay question, but it's very similar to that. So you've been working through this, and I put together a little video to show you what could be a good approach that we can take to answer this question. So I got a bit of an essay plan here, and we've already discussed what some of the conventions of classical crime fiction are in terms of the nature of a detective, the setting, also the use of clues and red herrings by the writer. I think that we also talked about the suspects and also how the crime is finally solved, so that resolution or breakthrough. And we've read a couple of stories, one from Edgar Allan Poe. We also watched the film Hound of the Baskervilles, and we also read a short story that completely goes against those conventions or completely subverts them, and that is Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. So in my introduction, I've decided to put together a bit of a plan, and I've written some sentences that I'd like to walk you through, and I'm going to make them suddenly appear as I talk to kind of reveal that mystery as I walk you through this. So in terms of the introduction, we said that our first sentence must be quite broad, and it could be perhaps even a quote that we get from the internet, or something that we may have heard to hook my audience's attention. So I found this very interesting quote online by T.S. Eliot, and it says, T.S. Eliot once said that an attentive reader should have as good a shot as solving a mystery as the story's detective. I think that's a good hook to help my audience focus on my discussion on classical crime fiction, and also that tries to, in a very general or generic way, to engage with my question about the appeal of detective or classical crime fiction. I said something else after that because it's a bit too broad, so I just want to narrow it down to my thesis statement very gradually. Perhaps this might be one of the reasons why the crime fiction genre, and in particular the classical subgenre, continues to fascinate readers today. So again, I'm trying to narrow it down to my thesis statement, which will come later on. The appeal of this subgenre is clear in stories such as, and these are the stories I intend to discuss, The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and Lamb to the Slaughter by Roald Dahl. Now, after that, I need to have another more specific sentence, and that's where I actually engage with the question. I say, hey, now, for one of my stories, I do understand that it follows the conventions of classical crime fiction, whereas the other one subverts them. Now, in my topic sentences, I'm going to have to discuss how that happens. But in my introduction, I'm merely just telling my reader why I intend to discuss later on. So there is my last sentence before my thesis. Now, my thesis is a statement that directly addresses my essay question. And my essay question is something like, what contributes to the enduring appeal of crime fiction? So what makes the audience keep on coming back to reading those stories? What makes them so interesting and so intriguing that the audience keep on coming back and wanting more? Okay, so I'm going to reveal my thesis statement here. It says, through the conventions of crime fiction, in both stories, it is clear that readers continue to enjoy reading crime fiction to what? Satisfy their enduring thirst for order and certainty, and the expectation that order or this would be reestablished when the murder is solved. Now, I have repeated order twice, so perhaps I should go back and edit this. It is very important that you do not take your first draft as a final draft. So you may need to go back a few times to ensure that your writing is actually flowing, not just doing what it's meant to do, but you also present a discussion that is, for most part, grammatically correct, and that it is cohesive and coherent. So it builds from one idea to the next quite clearly and quite seamlessly. And it also doesn't have any gaps that makes it sound like there's something wrong here. Okay, so in my paragraph number 1, by the way, I've only written 3 paragraphs because I'm only dealing with Hound of the Baskervilles at this stage. I'd like you to do a little bit of writing on your own for Lamb to the Slaughter. We've done a fair bit of planning for that. If you go back to, it's a wrong document, that document that we did in class, remember that I gave you this table and I asked you to fix it for me, and some girls actually did that quite well. So it's a fair bit of it's a few ideas there and some evidence there that I'd like you to go back to in order to be able to write those 7 paragraphs. So at the moment I'm only going to present you with 3 body paragraphs. So here we go. So what are the conventions of classical crime fiction in Hound of the Baskervilles? So I thought about discussing setting and the detective first. So in my topic sentence, I've written, in The Hound of the Baskervilles, Sir Conan Doyle follows the conventions of classical crime fiction when he uses an ominous setting and an ingenious detective to solve the crime. So that's my topic sentence. So I'm gonna go to my first piece of evidence. And it says, the Baskervilles live in Baskervilles Hall, which is a desolate mansion in a dark and gloomy moorland. I'm gonna provide my example. Holmes arrives at the hall with Sir Henry Baskervilles in the film, and the eerie atmosphere is established at once. Jack Stapleton also warns them, so that is Holmes and also Watson, perhaps I should have written that, of the latest occurrences, which include the threat of a supernatural hound believed to haunt the Baskervilles family line. So I'm just talking about setting, the ominous setting at that point in time. Now, my next point will be, I want to talk about my detective. So what's my second piece of evidence? It says Sherlock Holmes sets out to investigate this superstition. So I said that because I want to have that very seamless link between what I've just said and moving on to my next point. I want it to flow. Holmes is a deductive genius who uses his powers of observation and imagination to solve the crime. He is not easily dissuaded, I'm missing something there, to believe in facts, but looks well beyond them. Now, how do I prove that? Now, for example, Sir Henry's boot going missing is a clear clue that a hound is actually involved, since it can sniff him out to find him and try to murder him. Who actually finds that? We know that Sherlock Holmes finds that out later on. So I'm actually proving that Holmes is that deductive genius there. But I get a specific example from my film. Okay, so I could go on and write a little bit more there, but I'm trying to make it quite concise because I want to show you a sample. It's not a perfect sample, but give you a bit of an idea of what's expected for this assessment. Okay, both the frightening setting and the brilliance of the investigator allows the audience to be engaged in the story from the outset. So in my conclusion, I go back to what I've written in my introduction, and I kind of say, so I know that I'm linking it back to my conventions here, and that was in my plan. I wanted to talk about setting and the detective, and here's what I've said. So I know that in classical crime fiction, we're relying on the brilliance of the investigator and on perhaps that frightening setting, that desolate place that acts as the perfect place in which a murder will happen. I'm going to stop the video here because I only have 15 minutes in this for this product that I'm using to record the video, and I'll continue in my next video with paragraph 2.